Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started today. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's event, Hurt People, Transforming Lateral Violence in American Indian and Alaska Native Communities. This is brought to you by the National American Indian and Alaska Native Childhood Trauma TSA Category 2 Center. We are funded through SAMHSA. This is also in collaboration with the Native American and Alaska Native Leadership Academy. We are located here in Iowa at the University of Iowa Center for Behavioral Health. Thank you for being here. And I will hand this off to my colleague, Monica, and she will read the next slide. Thank you.
Thanks, Teresa. Welcome everyone to today's session. The National American Indian and Alaska Native Childhood Trauma Treatment Service and Adoption Center is supported by a grant from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. The content of the event is the creation of the presenters, and the opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect the views and policies of SAMHSA, HHS, or the American Indian and Alaska Native NCTSN.
Here is our land acknowledgement that some of our colleagues developed. Please take a moment to read the slide, and we're just going to sit on it for a moment so that we can prepare for the session. Thank you so much for taking the moment to read. Teresa is now going to introduce herself.
Again, afternoon, everybody. I am so glad to see so many people here. This is part 2 of a very important topic in Indian country. We have decided today to bring on a panelist of young students and people that are doing just wonderful things in their Native communities. So we will get to that in a minute, but we just felt like this was such an important topic, for trauma and for wellness, and especially because this month is Mental Health Awareness Month. We thought it was very important that we bring light to this very needed conversation. Again, I am the co-director of the National American Indian Alaska Native Mental Health TTC School Mental Health Program, and the co-director for the National American Indian and Alaska Native Child Traumatic Stress Initiative Category 2. I hold a master's in educational leadership and a master's in business administration. I have been working with Native peoples for a very long time. My personal vision is to influence and inspire others to shower Native children with all they need to become a success, the person they're supposed to become. I will now hand it over to my colleague, Monica.
Thank you. My name is Monica Andrea Rossi. I am the program manager for the American Indian and Alaska Native Leadership Academy. I also oversee the development of the behavioral health education program, and I work on the Native Youth Roundtable together with Teresa. I do have my degree from the University of Tromsø in Norway, and I have previously been working in the university sector in Norway, leading large-scale educational programs provided to different organizations in Norway.
Hi, everyone. I'm Liz Sadoff. I am the program coordinator for the Childhood Trauma Center. I recently just graduated with my MPH in Public Health and Community and Behavioral Health. And I've had the opportunity of working with both Teresa and Monica on the Native Youth panels, as well as other projects. The National American Indian and Alaska Native Childhood Trauma Treatment Center was recently created to increase support and infrastructure for Native children within the non-Native and Native workforce. We're putting our website in the chat for all of you to learn more about our center's goal, available resources, and upcoming events. You can sign up for our newsletter and listserv at the bottom of our webpage. And after this panel discussion, if you are interested in having our lateral violence presentation presented within your community, please reach out to us or submit a TA request on our website, and it should be the 3rd or 4th tab on the website. And now we'll have the rest of our team introduce themselves. So Maya is unable to introduce herself today. However, she is an amazing Masters of Public Health graduate who has been working with Teresa on the National Child Traumatic Stress Initiative. And she had graduated with her BA in biology from Grinnell College. And she continues to teach me every day from courses as well as working with her. Now I'll pass it off to Jordan.
Hi, my name is Jordan Vandrask, and I recently graduated from the school counseling graduate program here at the University of Iowa. I basically assist Monica with Leadership Academy, the Behavioral Health Education Program Series, and Native Youth Roundtables as well.
Hello, my name is Eleanor. I'm currently a student in the University of Iowa School Counseling Program to get my master's. I work on the trauma grant with Teresa and Maya and Liz.
Hi, my name is Taylor Magnuson, and I am also a graduate student at the University of Iowa. I'm studying clinical mental health counseling, and I work closely with Monica and Jordan on the Native Youth Roundtable Leadership Academy and the Introduction to Behavioral Health Education Program.
Hello, my name is Mckenna Clark, and I'm a recent graduate of the School Counseling Master's Program at the University of Iowa. I started with the center working on the K-12 mental health grant, and now I work with the team on the trauma grant. Thank you so much for being here today, and I'm excited to hearing what everyone says.
Thank you, our wonderful GRAs. We could not do what we do for our Native communities without you guys. So let's meet our panelists. Keely, can you please introduce yourself?
Yes, ho Jagimo Akwanetishis. My name is Keely Driscoll. I'm 21 years old, and I'm a Meskwaki with ties to the Winnebago tribe of Nebraska. I'm a recent graduate. I received my BA in International Studies, and in the fall, I will be going to law school at the University of Arizona. So I've been working with the Native Center since my first year of undergraduate, and I also work with Great Plains Action Society. And I just want to thank all of the other panelists, as well as Teresa and Monica, for inviting us on and allowing me to be part of the panel today.
Thank you, Keely. Dorsey.
Hey, Mike. My name is Dorsey. I am Navajo, and I'm also a Paiute, which they call Pa Nooch. And but I also reside on the Ute Mountain Ute Reservation. I'm currently a student at Fort Lewis College, environmental studies major with an emphasis in biology. As far as what I'm doing and what I do at home, as far as what I do, I'm a community youth leader. I help out a lot with whether it be cultural events, or I also help out with a lot of youth events, being able to talk to the kids, being able to have interactions with them, being able to be an overall guidance leader or even a cultural leader in that aspect of the younger youth or younger than myself. So and I appreciate you all being here.
Aho, Dorsey, thank you. Manika.
Ani Waka, hello. Banika Tipul Indishnakas, Makwa Dodem, Genoje Kanin and Donjiba. Hello, my name is Banika Tipul. I am Anishinaabe, Lakota, and Yupik. My Anishinaabe name is Wasnodekwe. My Yupik name is Aganapushuk, which was my great-grandmother's name. I was born in Bay Mills Indian Community, or Genoje Kanin, a reservation in Michigan. I'm currently in Anchorage, Alaska, so I wanted to acknowledge the traditional lands of the Dena'ina people where I am currently living. I graduated last spring with a Bachelor of Social Work and have been working at Alaska Native Tribal Health Consortium as a project coordinator for the Alaska Blanket Exercise Program. I feel so honored and happy to be here. And I want to also say miigwech thank you to everyone who's invited me, as well as the other panelists. And I'm happy to be here today. Goiana, miigwech.
Miigwech Maniqua, thank you so much. And next we have Amashwe. Please introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Amish Davey Foster. I'm 18 years old and I'm currently a sophomore at the University of Montana studying a BFA in media arts as well as a double major in entertainment management. I grew up on the Sioux Reservation in Rosebud, South Dakota for half of my life and ended up moving to Florence, Montana through high school, and now I'm here at the University of Montana for college. I'm a person that strives to continue to build her voice and her craft so she can help her community thrive and empower themselves once again and kind of find and connect with their spirit. So thank you for providing me this platform to speak through my perspective. I'm a bit nervous today because I'm not used to this, but thank you for having me. And thank you to all the other panelists and the people that have put this on. Thank you.
Those were beautiful words. Please do not be nervous. This is your people and this is a safe place and you've got this. Shoshona.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Shoshana Johnson. I'm absentee Shawnee, Sac and Fox, and Mexican. I was born and raised in Oklahoma. I am from Norman, Oklahoma, and I graduated back in 2018. I double majored in communications and journalism. And from there, I started interning and working in Indian country. I started off as an intern, worked my way up in different prevention programs to the point where I became a project coordinator for a suicide prevention program. And after doing that for about 5 years, I decided I wanted to work for my own tribe. So the past 2 years, I've been working for my tribe's tribal health system, and I work in our marketing and public relations department. So thank you all for being here. I'm so excited to be back and to listen to the other panelists today. And yeah, so I will take it back to somebody else.
Thank you, Shoshona, and you're right. We are here to learn and listen from each other. Again, we have a wonderful group of American Indian youth here today on such a personal but such an important topic in Indian country. Now I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Monica.
Thank you, panelists, for those wonderful introductions. I'm very excited to hear what you have to say about topics today. I will go over a couple of housekeeping items before we start. Please know that this presentation may not apply to everyone. You may or may not agree with everything presented today, and that's okay. Please be respectful of others, their thoughts, and their feelings. This panel discussion may evoke strong feelings among some of you related to one's past trauma. And if you're hurt, that's okay, but please get help and do not hurt others. And this is a safe place, so please be positive with your comments in the chat.
So to get started with our discussion, we are going to play the crab in a bucket mentality video. It's a couple minutes long, and then afterwards, Teresa will provide a brief explanation of the video.
Once upon a time, in a faraway place, under the sea, buried in the sand, lived a little crab named Theodore, who had lots of friends, at least, or pretend. And one day his friends and he got trapped in a bucket under the sea, and they all began to cry. And frantically say, "Oh my, what shall we do?" But little did they know, Theodore had a brain, not the puny little one the size of a sand grain. Theodore found a hole in the bucket you see. And once he escaped, he would set his friends free. But before Theodore could even escape, he felt a sharp claw. And he said, "Hey, what the hey?" And the other crabs say, "Yeah, you gotta stay. We'll all die here and we'll never escape." Every note can't be perfect in this trivial story. Carry on. And Theodore tried to explain, where there's a will, there's a way. Actually, there's a hole. We can escape. But first, you gotta let go of me. But the crab said, "No, no, 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 no. Don't you see we're crabs in a bucket at the bottom of the sea?" And Theodore's thinking these crabs are crazy. They gotta lay off the extra algae and the plankton. But they didn't care. They didn't want to see that there was a hole in the bucket at the bottom of the sea. So while they were all asleep, Theodore escaped and let the rest of the crabs get ate. The end.
Thank you. We are very, we've looked at a lot of crabs in the bucket videos, and I truly love this video because it really does explain the crab in the bucket mentality. It is a true story. When you have one crab in a bucket, if you're actually going fishing for crabs, the crab will survive. But once you put other crabs, even one crab in that bucket with the crab, it will keep that crab from being able to crawl out of the bucket. It will take its claws and pull that crab down. So the more crabs you put in, none of them can get out and they're trapped. So that is what we're going to talk about today. Just a couple of lessons. So, ignore those crabs in your life. Go after your dreams. Don't let anyone put you down. Don't let people's words and opinions stop you from achieving your goals and your dreams. Don't worry about how green the grass is on the other side of the street. Live your life making your grass green too. No two people are made to be contained within the same bucket. Do what is good for you. And crab's job, again, is to pull you down to make sure that you don't succeed. They may not care that they are not successful as long as you do not succeed. So please, if anything you leave here today with, please don't be the crab in the bucket. Next slide, please. So the crab in the bucket mentality is very important to understand lateral violence. The crab in the bucket mentality means if you can't have it, if I can't have it, neither can you. Everyone is your friend as long as we're on the same level. As long as you're not moving up to better and bigger things, we could stay friends. Not everyone will support you. Not everyone is truly your friend. Not everyone wants to rise above the status quo or see someone else rise above it. Keeping others down makes people feel important, powerful, and that they have control. Don't feel insecure when you see other people improve. That does not mean you're failing just because other people are succeeding. Make that a reason for you to also go after your dreams. If you don't want to be a crab, you must be confident in yourself and stay on the path to victory. And now I'm going to hand it to Monica to explain the definition of lateral violence.
Yes, so today's topic is lateral violence, and we just want to provide you with one of the many definitions of it, so everyone is on the same page when we get started here. Lateral violence is a form of bullying. It can often be called horizontal violence, which has been defined as organized, harmful behaviors that we do to each other collectively as part of an oppressed group within our families, within our organizations, and within our communities. It can look like bullying, verbal intimidation, non-verbal intimidation, social exclusion, cyberbullying, physical violence, or gaslighting, for example. And with that, we're going to start with the questions to the panelists. And the first one is, where do you think lateral violence came from? And why is it prevalent in American Indian and Alaska Native communities? The first question goes to Shoshona first.
Okay. Well, I would like to begin by saying that in my family, a lot of my relatives grew up in environments where they felt like they were less than compared to other neighboring tribes, even other families in the neighborhood. Some of my relatives even had to go to boarding schools where they experienced even more oppression and assimilation. My uncles are still alive today and can talk about their experiences. So they've passed that down to us. And it's really sad. It's really hurtful. It gives me a peek into their lives and how their lives played out after that and why they act the way they act sometimes. But lateral violence, I think, rooted in colonization, and throughout the years, throughout the generations, it fostered an environment for competition and comparison, which is where that crab in the bucket example comes from, I think. And lateral violence is so common that I think it's a part of our culture now. It's up to the point where it's a warning you give to younger generations. I know my family definitely warned me about lateral violence and oppression, even as a little girl, and always told me to be careful in that I'm either going to witness it or I'm going to experience it. But either way, it's going to have a ripple effect on everybody else. In my experience, it looks like gossip, name calling, finger pointing, other forms of harassment. I saw in the example about lateral violence, there's also these nonverbal cues that people give off that make you feel excluded, and people giving you the cold shoulder. And I think it's so prevalent in our communities because there's still more of us struggling than thriving. And I think that's where it creates feelings of jealousy and shame.
Thank you so much, Shoshona, for your reflections on that. I'll hand it over to Keely.
Yeah, so when I think about this question, just due to the things I experienced growing up, I have like a historical framework because my mother teaches history. And when I think about where lateral violence came from, I do think it is something that is intergenerational. And though it can be like a learned behavior, it's also a coping mechanism for children. And I think where it can be most prevalent historically was in like the boarding schools, as Shoshona mentioned. And so I think that lateral violence and the continuation of it can be due both to the lack of response in addressing and realizing it for what it is, and also as a way of coping for some people who might not otherwise know how to handle the oppression that they face in schools, in systems, and in everyday life within the community and outside of it.
Thank you, Keely. Amish Davey, where do you think lateral violence came from, and why is it prevalent in American Indian and Alaska Native communities?
So I personally think that lateral violence came with colonization, then was embedded into us through the abusive boarding schools, then enforced through the oppression, racism, inequality, and the constant fighting in our communities we experience to this day. Lateral violence is prevalent in our Indigenous communities because it's something our people have normalized, given the side eye to, and also have practiced as a way of making themselves feel better when they are insecure and struggling within their own lives. Lateral violence is a deliberately bullying someone for the status satisfactory of making oneself feel better about themselves. People that are committing lateral violence can be angry, feeling shame, rage, maybe just have repressed feelings in general that may lead to projecting onto others in ways like jealousy, resentment, blame, bitterness, making fun of others, or guilt tripping others, which is making others feel guilty about doing certain things. Our people are struggling, and the crab in the bucket persona is something that makes us feel like we have power in certain parts of our lives where we lack. Now, I'm not saying we all are struggling and using the crab bucket persona, but if we're not doing it, it's happening to us or it's happening around us. Not until this opportunity that has been given to me to speak about lateral violence, which I'm so honored to be here speaking about my perspective and representing our youth, but I never really had the chance to actually think about how this affected my own life personally, because I never had a term or a definition to identify what I'm experiencing besides the crab in the bucket saying. But I personally want the colonized definition, we have colonized habits and we were forced into as a people. Now we have normalized it as if it became our people, like lateral violence is who we are, So I'm saying lateral violence is a violence people commit when struggling within their own lives without healthy coping habits, and it turns into projecting on other people, resulting in more division, alienation, suicides, runaways, and more oppressed people. That's all I have.
Thank you for that, Amish Davey. Dorsey, would you like to reflect on this question? And please let me know if you want me to repeat the question for you.
Yeah, what was the question again? Just to reiteration, just in case. Yeah,
so where do you think lateral violence came from, and why is it prevalent in American Indian and Alaska Native communities?
Like the other panelists have said, I think it's something that roots very, very deep down into the idea of colonization. It roots down from intergenerational things. My grandpa grew up, he went to the military, he left school, he left home at a young age. I think a lot of what he learned, he brought that home and it came down on his kids. And then from his kids, vice versa, it came down to them. So it's very much, it starts from some area, it comes home, becomes a norm, and then it's taught others until someone else sees the difference from it. It's a very big issue and a very big thing, because you see it across all Native American cultures. Everyone has this sense of, oh, you think you're leaving, you think you're better than us, oh, you're doing this, you think you're better than me now. It's very much a sense of, I think Native people have been oppressed for so long that we have to keep ourselves protected from our own people as well. That it is such a norm that we have started to pick up, that we have started to take in colonial mindsets of we have to protect ourselves instead of looking back at the people and being able to protect our people. So we sometimes hurt our people in that response or in that sense. It's that Indianness of, I have to protect myself to protect my own and protect others as well. Being able to move forward from that and being able to get that norm out of the way. Me growing up, it was always that mindset of, I'm gonna do better, but I always want to come back to help the people instead of I'm gonna do better, leave you guys, never talk about it again. So it's being able to get rid of that mindset and being able to say, okay, I want to go out, spread, and come back with that type of thing. So that's where I think it comes from. It's a very old mindset and it's becoming a norm nowadays. So yeah.
Thank you for that, Dorsey. And I'm just going to read a comment in the chat. Well said, loving what they're sharing. And with that, Benika, would you like to reflect on this question?
Yeah, absolutely. I first want to begin, before answering this question, highlighting that for thousands of years, Indigenous governance systems provided kinship systems for healthy relationships and social harmony. We had traditional teachings and still have traditional teachings that helped how to handle hurtful differences among each other and come from a place of respect. And these were teachings that emphasize the importance of having power with, not power over one another. And it still is embedded in our culture as a way of knowing. And so is unfortunately lateral violence. Where do I think it comes from? Like everybody else has been sharing, it's rooted in oppression. It's a cycle of abuse that our people have experienced over and over again, both during colonization as well as right now. It's a result of genocide, intergenerational and historical trauma, this unresolved grief and loss that we have experienced as a people, and as well as the ongoing effects of discrimination and racism. We're talking about generations and generations of oppression. And so all the pain and frustration and anger we've experienced because of that is resulting in internalized suppression, internalized racism. And so lateral violence is rooted in all of this. And like other people have highlighted, a major contribution to lateral violence is also because of, yes, the Native boarding schools, where children were taken away from their parents, lost the nurturing and loving environment that they were being raised in, and had a lack of protection and numerous experiences of several kinds of abuse and neglect. And so survivors of these boarding schools would return to their communities, and then this is when the cycle of abuse they themselves have experienced would continue in the communities. And so, yeah, they affected our community's well-being. And so it's very much prevalent today. And because it's been normalized and disputed and silenced, like again, within our families and organizations or communities, there is creating fragments within them because of that. So those who have endured oppression, it comes from, like, again, the suppressed feelings of shame and rage and anger, and it's manifested in these behaviors that we direct towards each other. And that can include like resentment, blame, bitterness, and jealousy. When you're continuously told that you are worthless or treated that you are worthless, you feel so powerless, and this is what's leading to these damaging, harmful acts and learned toxic behaviors, which is preventing us from moving forward through healing unless we talk about it, which is why like things like today are really important. And so I just, again, want to go back to gratitude of being in this space with the panelists and with everybody here. Butch.
Thank you for that response, Benika. And I just have to comment that someone in the chat said that that the person think this is happening in other cultures too, and it surely does. And very well said by the panelists is another comment here. So thank you all for that. And with that, I will hand it over to Teresa for the next question to the panelists.
I'm just appalled already of you guys. I'm so impressed. Thank you so much. You handled that with grace, and those were beautiful words. I do want to add a little bit. It is whoever made that statement, they are correct. Lateral violence is not just American Indian Alaska Native communities. Lateral violence can happen with anybody that is oppressed. It can also happen in the workplace. However, today we were here for an attempt on a better road for our American Indian Alaska Native communities. And we are looking at you guys to be our leaders for tomorrow. I do want to add to, I think you did great when you were talking about the definitions and where this is really coming from. And what I heard you talking about is the oppression, the colonization, the historical trauma, the systematic racism. All of these are cycles that are continuing and continuing and continuing, that is resulting in now what we are doing to ourselves and our own community members. And that is what lateral violence is and where it's coming from. Thank you so much. Those were beautiful answers. So the next question I have is, what is an example you have personally experienced? Excuse me. What is an example you have personally experienced or a secondhand story regarding lateral violence? What are some negative consequences because of the lateral violence you experienced or you saw being experienced? And I'm going to start with Keely, please.
So as a Native person with a non-Native father and a Native mother, I have both experienced and witnessed the lateral violence that can occur towards multiracial and multi-ethnic individuals in many of our communities. And when I was growing up and experiencing these things, I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what I was experiencing or how to respond to what I experienced. And I know that most of the responses that I did, like as a child, were not healthy responses. And I know firsthand how someone who is hurt can hurt another person in direct response to that. So I think that from my experience, being told that as a biracial individual, that I am only white or I can't be both, which has been my life experience, is, you know, living both within American and my community. So I experienced this at my tribal school from a peer, and lateral violence often is committed among peers in the school setting. And so I don't have any, today, after realizing what it was and realizing where all those thoughts come from, I don't have any, I'm not like upset at the person, or I'm not holding it against myself in the way that I responded poorly. But now I definitely do want to bring that to the table and talk about it, that these things are happening to our children. And that also goes for those that are enrolled and those that aren't enrolled. There is some lateral violence there. And so a lot of the negative consequences that I have suffered is feeling like I don't belong in my own community, or feeling like I don't belong in the larger society as well. So for people who can't conform to these individualistic identities that have, you know, through blood quantum and through these practices that were created with colonialism and then embedded into our own systems, you know, it creates this dysphoria of identity for children who know what they experience and know how they were raised and are raised in their communities, but then are repeatedly through bullying experiences or otherwise questioning. They stop and question, like, and that is an experience that not everyone faces, but some of the consequences are not being solidified in your identity and always having to wonder, am I as, you know, as Native as someone else? Because, you know, after you're told that you're just this or just that, having to conform to those strict boundaries, then it makes you wonder, like, where is my place? Where is the place for me? And we don't really have a lot of spaces for that in our community because these topics are highly complex, and they're and like, it's really important to respect our tribal sovereignty and the sovereignty of our tribe's ability to establish who's enrolled, who's not. But it's also important to acknowledge that this is a struggle that our youth are going through, and more youth in our communities are going through every day. And so I know that this has an effect on suicide rates, and it affects the overall mental health of our youth and their comfortability in their own communities, in wanting to be involved, in wanting to learn the language, and wanting to attend ceremony, everything like that, in wanting to stay at the tribal school and not go to another one that may be nearby. And so, yeah, I think that plays a really big part in our coping response. I'm lucky enough to, you know, have been able to work through these things, but our children right now, today, some of them don't have the resources or people to talk to about this. And so I think it's important that we, you know, bring up these conversations, even though they are delicate, and we, you know, just hear and listen and be understanding of each other, of all the members in our communities. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Keely. Wonderfully said, exactly right. I have to add, we are the only one, even though we're indigenous to Turtle Island, that has to show blood quantum. And it's in several communities, as what you were referring to. And it's like, who am I if I'm not accepted by my community members and I'm not accepted in the Western world? Then that is a struggle identity that we all have. So I thank you so much for sharing that story. And I'm so glad to hear that you're on a good path. So thank you. So the next person I'm going to call on is Amish Davey.
Hey, so I've experienced lateral violence from siblings, past friends, former teammates, and work colleagues. And from my experience, I've lived on the reservation and I'm currently living off the reservation. And I can just go to say that lateral violence is in every community. No matter where you are, you will experience some form of lateral violence, you know, and it continues to like, I guess, it from personal experience, it's belittled me, but it also has shaped me into the person I am today. A couple of specific examples was when I was in high school participating in the wrestling team. I wrestled for an all males team and experienced males shutting me out, making jokes towards me and other females that were wrestling, sexualizing us. They used this to like make themselves seem funny, but really I think it was to satisfy their ego now that there's a female wrestling in the room. I've also experienced intentional harm while wrestling males around the state as if I threatened their manhood. With wrestling, some may say, I guess that's a part of the sport. But if you are a wrestler, you know when dirty wrestling is taking place, and I've experienced it. But I did stand up for myself because I will not tolerate that, even if I am a woman, which doesn't mean anything because I had every right to be there and be treated with respect and dignity. When I was living on the reservation, rumors started easily. Guys would share nudes and sexual videos of girls and would intentionally call them inappropriate names. Instead of socially attacking the guy for exposing this girl, everyone, including me, which I still, with all the apologies within me, I'm a changed person now, contributed to the lateral violence by making fun of her because everyone else was doing it. Later resulting in it sticking with her through the rest of high school or until everyone forgot or she snapped, then was thrown into a mental institution where she may or may not be able to talk about what she's going through and how she's feeling or how everyone is not holding this guy responsible for what happened. That was normalized on our reservation. It's normalized in other reservations as well as I've grown and moved around and made connections with other people. I've also experienced lateral violence from my own siblings, maybe because one had a bad day resulted in me being called a stupid fat bitch. I'm sorry for my vulgar language, but that right there is the epitome of what lateral violence is in a household. And I'm not using this to shame anyone, but to also share my perspective. Because lateral violence is someone going out on impulse, abusing others with words, physical violence, taunting, shaming, just right out making fun of others, making other people feel horrible because they're lacking or struggling with something in their own life. From personal experience, I became really angry for the bad results of what happens from lateral violence. I became really angry. I felt like I had no voice, but I internalized it all because I wasn't getting the reassurance I needed or given the space to express myself properly. I cry when I'm angry, and it leads to having scary mental breakdowns where I'm alone and no one can see me. I don't like being vulnerable because I'm not used to it. I think it makes me feel weak sometimes because when living at home, my siblings would use that as a way of making me feel bad. Like, oh, just go cry. Are you going to cry? Literally taunting me, making me feel bad about being vulnerable. So that the result of that was just me becoming a stuck up person, becoming rude. Now that I removed myself from the environment that made me feel that way, be that way, I've been able to start my own healing journey emotionally, mentally, physically, and spiritually. My journey is not done because it's a constant cycle as long as you live, but I've always had the healing in my mind. I was just still in an environment causing me discomfort that was preventing me from actually doing what I needed to do to express myself in healthy ways. Talk through my anger. I still cry sometimes. and allow my feelings to be talked about, as well as being vulnerable without shame. It was not easy changing my norm. I had to actively change my unhealthy thinking patterns into something that is now a mindset I'm actively deploying. So I guess like the results of constantly experience lateral violence can turn into someone becoming very scared of the world, becoming scared of standing up to people, or even like asking for help, or just talking about how you're feeling. It really oppresses to a person down to where they feel like they have no one. They don't feel comfortable sharing with people. They push themselves away from society. They just internalize it all, unless you're a person that takes all that lateral violence and then just turns into another person committing lateral violence. It's a constant cycle. We all contribute to it some way, or we have, and I still have to work on it, because it's just embedded into us as a people now. I don't think nobody yet is at that point of where they can fully say, no, I don't contribute lateral violence, because at the end of the day, toxic feminism is lateral violence, is being rude to other women, bringing down other women to make yourself feel better, get a position, get a guy. I experienced that being a brown woman here on a predominantly white campus, which is built on Salish land. I experience it in the workplace for men that don't think that I should be in the position I am now at a young age. All I can say is that personally, on how I've combated that, was just standing in my place and becoming strong. And that's all I have for now.
I couldn't interrupt because you were beautiful. How strong of you to come on here and say that. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
May others follow suit. You are on your healing journey. You are right. Even as an adult, we go through it. We are re-traumatized when things like this happen, because it continues to happen. But you are on a healing journey, and you're going to do great things. I'm very proud of you.
Thank you.
You gave me the chills, actually. Our next person that we're going to go to is Dorsey.
Yeah, so I guess some examples of lateral violence that I have experienced is, I grew up on a reservation, and I grew up almost as an adopted son. So my dad, he's my stepfather, but I don't ever call him that. He's my dad. But being that and having that essence of growing up, I always kind of went incognito, always kind of my real true blood tribe. I never really acknowledged it. I never took essence of it. I never said, I am this and this is who I am. I always kept it under the board. I kept myself at a very low maintenance of my culture and who I was as a person. But as I grew through high school and middle school, I started to hear the essence of Native American movements, Native American activists and stuff like that. So through high school, a lot of what had happened is it was two tribes that did not get along with each other. So me being there, standing there and sitting there, it was almost like they made me have to choose who I was more of. And I didn't like that. I didn't like that idea, because I think as you grow older and you find out across Indigenous communities, really the biggest goal is to be able to get along with all these other tribes, being able to call one another brother, sister, uncle, auntie, to be able to take knowledge from others, wisdom. For me, that was a very hard thing, because I didn't want to get on the bad side of people. I didn't want to get on the good side of people. I wanted to be totally neutral in whichever way I was learning. I didn't want to disrespect my father, nor did I want to disrespect my mother in that essence. So growing up all through my life, I've seen that lateral violence of, I'm better than you because you're not this tribe. I'm better than you because your tribe hasn't done this. I've been always like the mediator, that essence of being able to say, hey, this is this way, this is that way, but can we get along together? Because it's not all about us at the end of the day. It's about the youth. It's about being able to share the knowledge and being able to have the youth come forward to acknowledge and speak on it. Because, we're all, I think a lot of what we have as far as lateral violence and as far as like stuff that goes on is because it's the result of tragic experiences. At the end of the day, I don't ever say I never wanted those things to happen to me, because at the end of the day, it made me stronger as a person. growing up with both my grandma's side, growing up with my mom, being able to take in both teaching has made me who I am better at the end of the day. Being able to see that, and it made me feel, I'm not gonna lie, it made me feel pretty down. I didn't know which side to take. I didn't know which more to take in of, and being that adopted son, a lot of elders aren't forward to always teaching you those ways because you're not true blood of whatever nation it is. At the end of the day, there is some people out there that will teach you that stuff and you will learn it. And at the end of the day, it's being able to say, okay, I learned this, I learned that, and I want to go forward with it in life. I've seen a lot of that growing up, and I guess not being strong in my cultural identity as Native American. I grew up with non-Indigenous people as well. A lot of my friends are non-Indigenous as well. And it was always jokes like Columbus Day. It was always, Dorsey, is it Columbus Day? And I'd say, yeah, it's Indigenous Day. It was always during football practice, we had conversations, and I'd be like, I don't know, if you want to keep talking, I'll hit you with the power of the free world, And so it's being able to figure out that fine line, because at the end of the day, they weren't educated on what I was educated on, and they weren't educated on certain issues. At one point, I had one of my friends say, Dorsey, you're my favorite Indian. And I said, why? Why can't I just be your favorite brother or just be your best friend? Why do you have to initialize me as your favorite Indian, buddy? And so it was being able to understand that. And I told him, hey, just call me brother. You don't have to call me your Indigenous brother, because at the end of the day, we both are trying to understand each other. So being able to find an understanding, and that's what I experienced a lot of it. It's that lateral violence of between tribes, intergenerational, and honestly, the non-Indigenous to Indigenous things almost meets that fine line of racial and not racial, because it happens. Even I have become, I used to say my tribe was better than this tribe, and this tribe was better than I have been someone who has said that, but at the end of the day, I go back to the roots of where I come from, and I say, I think we're all equal, and we're all trying to find a better understanding of Mother Earth and the way of which we are trying to move. So that's part of the experiences that I have gone through, seeing that happen to me and seeing that happen to other people as well. I noticed a lot of the kids that I grew up with weren't the same way as me, but at the end of the day, we're trying to understand each other and have a, bigger goal and trying to reach a overall, let's move together. So, yeah.
Again, you guys are amazing me. I'm telling you, Dorsey, thank you for those powerful words of wisdom. Thank you. Next, we're going to have Benika.
Yeah. So with my personal experiences, I've mainly experienced lateral violence in my family. I also come today here feeling vulnerable, because it's not a good feeling to say out loud that people that you love and hold dear to you have committed different forms of it. And so it's really hard to choose from different experiences in my family. But I know that I have seen, not just for me, but like other people in my family, of shaming and gossiping and character annihilation. And it feels like there was like a lot of times things were, like picking a side, I guess, quote unquote, of like, different things that happened in terms of that, a lot of exclusion. And so I can definitely say that it was hard. It was hard to experience that, because I had remembered so many beautiful memories with them when I was younger. And as I got older and starting to see how things were, how they can be, I was often so surprised. And like when you're surprised, it was like often silent when things were happening. And so again, hard because I love my family. It definitely affected a lot of self-esteem and self-worth. Like you had to earn someone's love. And I also have to highlight that I know a lot of it is also because of intergenerational trauma, because of things that were passed down, because of the abuse they have suffered in their lives as well. And so it's just this continued cycle. And so this is the first time I'm speaking about it in public, even if I'm not sharing who, or if there's not really one instance, it's just something I know that is very much affecting my relationship with some of them, and having to keep them at an arm's distance because I know they're on their healing journey, and this is where they're at, and this is where they're at with their internal work. And so just knowing that you just send them love from afar and just know where it's coming from is really what's been helping me. It doesn't excuse behavior, but it definitely is like helping bring awareness to that. So continuing to be able to voice that in my family is something I'm doing as well. I was also given permission to share a relative story and their experience with lateral violence. A lot of us come from mixed heritages and we have a really big family. And so they felt ready and were being called to have traditional face markings. And it was a beautiful, beautiful celebration and ceremony. They felt like they were ready. And we made it just a really beautiful day. Like there was so many tears, there were so many smiles, there were so many laughs shared with each other. Like my family that we came together up here. And so she shared it with a relative from a different tribe. And unfortunately, they were met with comments like, nobody is going to want you with them on your face. You'll be isolated from this community. You'll be considered a freak and an outsider and seen as primitive. And so they were speaking from a place of fear of how this relative was going to be seen in this community. They thought they were coming from a place of love, but it was essentially just shaming and name calling and all these ugly feelings from that. So that definitely like affects the relationship and the self-esteem. And it's definitely, it's a hard thing to talk about, but they stood strong and they're standing strong with who they are. And so going forward and knowing that this is all contributing to the overall healing, I think is like a very powerful thing. And then so standing up and continuing being in these indigenous ways of being in culture, I think is so beautiful. And I am so, so proud of them. So I know these things are real. They're real. They're hard to talk about, but that's why it's so important to talk about and highlight. So thank you so much for letting me share about that.
Benika, we invited you here today because of your passion. We could hear it when you speak, and you are a loving person and you have a loving soul. This is a hard topic for anybody to speak with. Yesterday we had professionals on here and it was hard for them to speak about this topic. So thank you for sharing your personal story. And I just want you to know, it's not your fault. This is not your fault. It's them, not you. And always remember that. Shoshona.
Wow, everyone has been so vulnerable so far, and I extend my heart out to everyone this week. There's been a lot of tragedies happening lately. So being able to come here to talk about a hard subject, it's hard enough, but there's a lot going on in our country right now too. And so I'm just really proud of everyone for opening your hearts to everybody that's listening. And to everyone that's listening, thank you so much for staying with us and hearing what we all have to say, because it is uncomfortable, but it's important. Just like all these other panelists, I have so many experiences growing up that sound just like theirs. We met up last week, and that's something that we found is we have a lot of the same stories, same experiences. And I know some of the participants on here, I'm sure you can relate to some of these stories as well. So for me, I definitely want to keep that energy moving forward by talking more about my professional experience with lateral oppression and violence. Growing up, I came from a family that acted like everything was okay. We brushed everything under the rug. We didn't like people knowing our business. We had a lot going on in the household, but in our community, there's a lot of comparison and competition. So if you have drama going on, you keep it in the household so that nobody else knows. And it creates a sense of paranoia of, okay, well, who knows what about me? And I hate that. I still go through that even today. And it's just an ugly feeling. It's like you can't trust anybody. And when I was younger, I was going through a lot at home. And because of my family's culture of brushing things under the rug, I felt like I couldn't express myself. I couldn't tell anybody what was going on with me because it would, tarnish our image, our family image of, oh, we're successful in these things and in sports and good grades and being a good community member. And so I had a lot of pressure on me, even though things were getting bad at home with my parents, struggling with alcohol and separation and running away and not getting along with one of my parents. And so through those years, I started struggling with alcohol and binge drinking and substance abuse from an early age. And I hid a lot of it. Sorry, I've talked about this before, but for some reason, I feel more vulnerable today. I struggled with drinking, alcohol, and substance abuse at a young age. And finally, my mom saw that I needed help and I needed guidance because I was hanging out with the wrong people. I was going down the wrong path because I just wanted to feel better. I didn't know how to feel better because the adults in my life weren't giving me good examples. And luckily, my mom, she got out of a bad relationship and eventually took me along with her. And that's when we started this vision to heal our little family. And whatever that may be, we're going to work together and make sure that we stop this cycle of abuse, whether it's physical abuse, sexual abuse, substance abuse. We wanted to just make that stop because it wasn't serving us anymore. It was tearing our family apart. And so with this vision of me and my mom working together, it happened. We started working together. I started off as an intern. It was so great. It was so fun. But I did get some backlash and some negativity from that because it felt like people were giving me backhanded compliments because, oh, well, you're going so far, you're doing so great, but it's probably because your mom. It's probably because your mom's influence. And it really invalidated my experiences, all the progress I had made on myself and making sure that I'm educating others about underage drinking and substance abuse. And so that was terrible. I felt very isolated and misunderstood in professional working spaces because I was getting comments like that. And so it really started eating away at me. And I was like, okay, well, maybe I should just be written off as just a lazy product of nepotism. And that's when it came to that point, I just couldn't accept that. I didn't want to let that be the reason I give up. And so I was like, okay, I need to build myself back up. So I did. Started taking care of myself, started going to therapy, started taking medication to help me feel better, started going back to my own tribe, started doing more of being more involved with my tribe and going back to my culture and family that I haven't seen in a long time. So that helped push me to branch off into my own path. And it has been an amazing journey the past 2 years or so, being back with my tribe. Yes, there is some lateral oppression happening, but I am in a safe space to talk about it, to address it, to talk to other people, my coworkers about it. And I have a really great support system at work. And even though there's still some issues there, I feel comfortable bringing stuff up to the higher ups. I don't know if everybody feels that way, but I do. And I've definitely been able to provide a safe space for other people to talk about their experiences with lateral violence. And so, yeah, I just wanted to bring that up, but those experiences have helped me reframe my past, and it's helped me see the bigger picture we have here, which is to address lateral violence and oppression.
Shoshana, I'm so proud of you. You brought up so many important things here today. Number one, mental health. We've got to stop the stigma. Mental health is real. You know what I'm saying? Let's just stop ignoring it and let's admit it. And I appreciate that you came here today and you said those words, because a lot of other people that are scared to get the help they need are scared to admit it. Number two, you know what? I grew up with the same mentality is don't talk, don't tell. Somebody put it in this chat. And I don't know where that came from. It wasn't until I took social work and sociology courses in school that I even knew that the things that were happening in my home was happening in other homes. I just thought what I was going through was normal. I had no idea. And number three, you have a mentor in your life, your mom. She saw it. She said, "This, I am not going to let my child go through this." And she did the right thing. So bless you, bless your mother. And thank you so much for being so honest. I'm going to now hand it off to Monica. Thank you. Thank you guys so much.
Yeah, this is very moving listening to you guys. And I'm impressed and humbled listening to you talking so eloquently on such a difficult topic. And I'm seeing in the chat here that you are giving hope for the future to those listening in here today. So, and I have to say with Dorsey, let's move together, all of us. And with that, let's go to the next question. How can we as individuals help those who have experienced lateral violence? And the question goes to Amish Davey first.
Hi. Ways everyone can contribute to someone's healing is providing a space for one to express themselves truly. I feel like there's a time and place for a professional mental health approach, but really our people's spirits are being repressed, resulting in emotional, physical, and mental damage. We have to empower them into wanting to be connected with themselves and give them the strength to find their voice and want better for themselves. Lateral violence can turn someone bitter. It can take away their happiness, voice, the will to live. If they don't know how to stand up for themselves, heal themselves, and understand what is happening is not their fault. It's the result of someone else's struggle they do not deserve. And that's one thing we should start making clear to everyone, is that the lateral violence that you are experiencing is something you do not deserve. It's not your fault. By validating what they are also experiencing, acknowledge that it's not their fault and what they are experiencing is something they do not deserve, like I said, but do not excuse the abuser. From personal experience, I feel like a lot of lateral violence is just looking over it and excusing a person. Oh, they're just having a bad day. Well, that doesn't give you the right to treat me like however you're treating me, whether that be being rude for no reason, making fun of me, etc. I think it's time you start holding people accountable for their actions. Stop giving excuses, like I said, to those who make other lives harder. It's just holding people accountable for their action, and not ways that make them feel embarrassed, but just, hey, simply what you're doing is not okay, and I'm not going to tolerate that. Stop giving them like the place where they feel comfortable lashing out on other people. Also by providing natural ways of healing, like self-reflection, meditation, prayer, emotional support groups, physical activity, laughing, sweats, music, art. Expression through energy is very important, as I believe we can have a mindset like doing that. Something physically expressing ourselves is another way of letting go of all that pent up energy inside of us. Ways we can help us grow as a people is finally just having a conversation, opening up the floor where we are comfortable talking about this in schools, comfortable talking about this in workplaces with each other. I also think that having a lateral violence conversation with adults in our lives are very important, as that they do it to each other, and then it trickles down to kids learning those patterns, learning all of that. But I guess like just kind of circling back is just kind of like allowing them to feel, allowing the person that is experiencing it to feel, understand, finally express in whatever way they feel comfortable. And if they start to like shift over into that lateral violence projected like kind of mindset, it's to also like try to help them acknowledge that part of themselves, you know, like, yeah, I'm hurting. And that should be validated, but the way I'm projecting it, like if I'm bullying somebody, that needs to be addressed too. So it's all about like addressing the negative, and then kind of growing from the negative as well.
Thank you for your comments. So let's ask Dorsey. How can we as individuals help those who have experienced lateral violence?
You know, I'm a big person as far as prayer goes. And that's across all cultures. You know, we have stuff like NAC, we have powwow. It's whatever form of healing you want to call it. You know, for an instance, for me, a lot of the time that I was able to truly come to myself and being able to find out who I was as a person, being able to know where I'm going and why I'm doing something in life, was being able to get better into with my culture. Like I said, for a long time, I didn't know which way I wanted to go. But I learned of combining those two cultures of who I was, the values, being able to get in tune with myself, as they say in a non-Indigenous way, being able to self-meditate, self-regulate your feelings, being able to come true with yourself. I think that's the biggest thing of ultimately dealing with that, being able to overcome everything all at once. A lot of the time, we just have to come to the truth with ourselves that we are hurt individuals. A lot of the time in Native American country, we like to throw it under the rug. We don't like to showcase it. We like to say, we have this essence of, I'm all right, I'll be okay. You know, a lot of the time when I come to prayer, when I go to sweat, when I talk to my elders, I'm revealing what's going on with me, and they're giving me their thoughts on it. And they're saying, this is what's going on, you know. And a lot of the time when I'm in prayer by myself, it's allowing me to acknowledge what's going on in that part of my life. It's allowing me to come to true terms with myself, being able to say, this is the problem. Where do I want to go with it? How do I want to fix it? And how do I want to fix it from the inside coming out? You know, and it's like I said, it's being able to acknowledge whatever the problem is. Like I said, that lateral violence of not giving them that sense of they can do whatever they want, being able to say, hey, can I teach you something? Because what you said had hurt me in this way, in this pattern. Being able to say, hey, I want to acknowledge what you're saying right now and be able to give you some background knowledge. A lot of the time why I was hurt was because those people were not educated on what had been going on. So being able to find the problem, solve it, whatever it may be. A lot of the time for me, it was being able to go back to Native country to get in tune with myself. In Navajo way, they always talk about, if you don't feel in tune with yourself, if you don't feel Mother Earth's beat, go outside, go out there in the middle of nowhere where there's no people, no sound, take off your shoes, be able to soak your feet into the dirt and find out who you are. You get the rhythm of Mother Earth back into you. And I've done that before, it works. And then it may not even be that, it's all how it attunes to that person. But it's being able to figure out that problem, I think. Being able to say, I figured out the problem, I identified it. How am I going to move forward from it? Educating the people on other experiences you've gone through, because we all gone through similar experiences. How can we move forward and fix it? How can we shed light on this? How can we not make it a stigma? How can we say Native mental health is a thing that needs to be addressed? How can we bring in the household and say, how can we bring it over at dinner table? You know, there's a lot of questions and there's a lot of answers to it. And I think collectively as Indigenous people, and even as this panelist here, we can all figure that out together. So I think it's a lot of identifying the problem and being able to not share it as a non-norm thing. So yeah.
Thank you, Dorsey, for that. Benita, will you go next?
Yeah, I'd first like to share that what helps me as someone who has experienced lateral violence and may have also unconsciously had at some point in my life with another, you know, at some point when I was younger. It's not a representation of you. It's where the other is at when a form of lateral violence occurs. It's a reflection of where they are at in their healing journey. But it's not excusing the behavior, it's understanding, it's just simply understanding where this comes from. Self-reflection and self-awareness is also components to an individual's continued healing journey. So continuing to become self-aware. I think being kind to others as well as yourself is really important as well. Just always coming from a place of kindness, having that be in your attention, I think is also what will help. Being open-minded, speaking truths without blame or judgment, embracing each other's differences in opinions and beliefs. And it's also kindly calling out people without blame or shame if they are perpetuating a form of lateral violence. I am also admitting that this is something that I am continuing to work on for myself. It's been a process. It's not easy, especially if it's someone, again, you care about and you love. But this is what's also going to help continue us healing when you witness or experience a form of lateral violence. And also not engaging in it in its different forms of toxic behaviors like gossip, verbal or non-verbal assaults, and passive as well as aggressive behaviors. Because I know that it can be a conscious harmful act, but it can also be unconscious and you may not be aware that you were doing it too. So those are just some things that come to mind with this question. Miigwech.
Thanks a lot, Benita. I will hand it over to Shoshona.
Okay, so the question was, how can we as individuals help those who have experienced lateral violence? Okay, so there have been a lot of instances actually of, whether it's coworkers or friends or family members coming to me and explaining some just stuff that's happened. Like, okay, hey, something happened at work today. Can I run this by you? Should I feel some type of way about it? And most of the time it is lateral violence. And every time I'm just like, all right, here we go again. It's still there. And I used to not know what to do in those situations until I realized it's not about what I can say to make them feel better. It's just holding space for them to express themselves. It's holding a safe space for somebody to say, hey, this is happening. I'm uncomfortable. I'm being vulnerable. Can I kind of work this out with you right now? And so that's just what I started doing. Like, okay, if there's something that someone wants to talk about, I don't get as freaked out or scared anymore because I'm like, oh gosh, what are they going to say? What am I going to say? How am I going to help them? It's not about helping them per se. It's just making them feel comfortable. And if you're not comfortable providing space for somebody to express themselves, I think you should definitely have a referral to somebody else that they can talk to, even if it's in a professional setting, just bringing in HR and addressing that problem. One of my bosses found out that I was participating in this panel, and she was joking and saying, oh, well, maybe we should, do some lateral oppression training here with our employees. And it was a joke kind of, but I was thinking, that's a good point. I don't know if there's trainings for lateral violence for like in the workforce. So that was something that was brought up this week that I thought would be a good idea for other people work on. So I'm just spreading that idea. If you have any ideas about lateral oppression trainings in the workforce, I think that'd be great. I think it's really needed. And how to address it in a professional way, using professional words, going about it a formal way. What are the steps you would take to addressing it in a workforce? So I think that's really important to bring up as well. But I still think Native communities have a lot to learn about mental health and how lateral violence is connected to it. And I think that's something we're touching on today, is that there is a connection. And what do we do about it? Because we don't want the oppressed to become the oppressors. You know, there's something there that gives people a false sense of power, I guess. When you're oppressing somebody, when you're harassing someone, it gives them a false sense of power because maybe they feel powerless in other parts in their lives. And how can we address that first before it trickles down to lateral violence?
Yeah, thank you for that. If anyone have any suggestions, please feel free to drop it in the chat here. So I will hand it over to Keely. Do you have any reflections on this question?
Yeah, I completely agree with so much of what all of the panelists have said so far. And I really think it's important to also acknowledge our successes. So in my family, you know, breaking that cycle is really difficult, but that was something my mother was able to do with my family having experiences in boarding schools. And so listening to her experience and acknowledging it and realize and appreciating it and you know, I just think it's so important to acknowledge the people in our lives who have actively worked to help break those cycles and to motivate them and encourage them that, you know, all of the work that they have done to address their own lateral violence and the example that they have shown and the leadership that they have displayed within a family or a community. It's very important to support those people and to encourage others to do the same. And so that's something that I personally am very appreciative of. And overall, I think just having conversation and being vulnerable and very brave in settings with yourself and with others, in recognizing and being able to come to terms with the fact that we all have done this and that we all perpetuate it in some form, in some way. And just being brave in our own communities and being able to speak out even though it's uncomfortable or scary, and to just celebrate our successes and encourage, you know, more understanding around this topic and movement and like towards a better direction. So thank you.
Thank you for all of your suggestions on this topic and what we can do about it. Yeah, a few more thoughts here. If you're comfortable, you can say something. If you can check on each other. You can practice love and acceptance, include people. You can be a change agent. You can be a upstander instead of a bystander. Do not judge others by what you have been told. Instead, try to lift each other up. Stay away from the crabs or help the crabs get the help they need. And help others feel comfortable and valued and encouraged at work and other places. Teresa, do you have any suggestions for someone experiencing lateral violence? What can they do in that situation?
Thank you, Monica. I think the panelists did a wonderful job in addressing that. And I know that we have one of our workers that put some information in the chat already. I do want to say, you know, I remember that saying, sticks and stones may break your bones, but words will never hurt you. That statement is so not true and really needs to be banned, to be honest with you, because words do hurt and they do stick with you unless you get the help that you need. I do want to bring the importance of what lateral violence can do to a person. And if you are experiencing lateral violence, please make sure to seek help. There are mental health therapists that can help you. Go to someone you could trust, talk to your elders, your parents. Just make sure that you are working on your stuff through lateral violence. If it's in your Native community, if you work for Native Nation and it's happening at work, go to your tribal council, go to HR, but don't be intimidated enough not to speak out, please. Again, you guys, I'm just so impressed. Every time I get on this panel with you, it warms my heart tremendously because it gives me hope that we're going to be okay because of you guys, that this world in the future will be okay because of the people like you. So I'm going to go ahead and go now to the next question. So how can we help to transform lateral violence in Native communities and finally come together as one? And I'm going to ask Dorsey to answer this first, please.
Can you reiterate the question again? I heard it, but I got to listen to it one more time.
No problem, Dorsey. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So how can we transform lateral violence in Native communities? Meaning, how can we stop it, turn it around, okay, and come together as one, unity?
You know, when the way I think of that question, you know, and the way that I'm, I guess, processing ways of solutions, I guess, would be to, you know, I think you need to let the community know that this is prevalent. You know what I mean? Being able to educate them first on telling them what's going on, being able to say, this is real, this is happening within the community, and being able to have it almost be a community-led thing. I think a lot of the times with Native American community, only the higher ups know about information, then it trickles down into this is what you need to know. I think it should be a community-based led type of thing, you know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, you get everyone's input being able to further go on from there. I know a lot of the times whenever I think of solutions, I say this, whenever I go into anything that I'm thinking or any ways or teachings, I always say this is the way I was taught. So being able to have everybody have their own instance of how they were taught, how they're going to fix something, really helps out at the end of the day to get the overall goal done. Because everyone has different teachings, everyone has different experiences, everyone has different meanings of life, whatever it may be. But being able to have it being a community-based thing, come together as one, like I said, identify the problem and being able to shed light on it and educate, not only from your elders, but to the younger generations, you know what I mean? Being able to, because I always hear this from my elders is, you know, the problems that you're facing, we've faced it, but just in a different monster, and vice versa, and going back on further. So it always makes sense to me. And I always talk to them about that. So it's being able to look at it from all different age groups, elders, middle age, you know, your 20s, and then going into your teens, into the little kids, because it could be starting from the little kids on up, or it could be being barely acknowledged at an older age. So like I said, I think it should be a community-based thing and educating the community on what's going on in their community. So, yeah.
Thank you so much, Dorsey. And then I'm now going to ask the same question. Benika.
Yeah, I would like to highlight an approach called Lateral Kindness. That is an approach to addressing lateral violence and based in Indigenous values that both promote healthy relationships and social harmony. It's a term that was coined in the First Nations communities in BC, Canada, and focusing on the positive things that are celebrated instead of focusing on the negative behaviors and issues. And I'd also like to acknowledge that multiple Indigenous cultures have it embedded in our culture that continues the process of healing and being kind to each other. I also like to highlight how we can continue transforming lateral violence is through traditional teachings. You always treated everyone with kindness. You are the community and the community is you. They are not separate, and this is where our physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual wellness comes from. This is how we took care of each other and how we continue to take care of each other, as well as continuing to focus on the wellness of youth and continuing to focus on the wellness of our elders, because they are the ones that also persevered and survived the atrocities of different events like the boarding school era. Creating a culture within our culture, again, that focuses on Native wellness. And I also like to always like to highlight this is that the change you want to see in your community within your tribal nation, it starts with yourself. And for me, like a lot of those comes from ceremony and dancing and singing and cultural gatherings, being outside with our first home, nature, being out on the lands and the waters. It truly decolonizes our mind and body and going back to the roots as a people. And so those are just, I feel so blessed to always like know that that is what is continuing us moving forward, and feeling those teachings that have been passed on generations. So that's also called historical wellness, that helps combat historical trauma and thus the forms of lateral violence. So go on. Thank you.
Good. Shoshana.
Okay, so the question was, how can we help to transform lateral violence in Native communities and come together as one? So before I transitioned to working in marketing and public relations, I worked in prevention. And when I worked in prevention, we talked a lot about risk and protective factors and how those may contribute to health disparities in Native communities. More specifically, I helped address underage drinking, suicide, and substance misuse. So those were the topics that we would often talk about with community members during town halls or like a community readiness assessment, where you give interviews and ask, okay, what's the vibe here in your community? What's the pulse? What's going on? Where are the hot spots? How can we help you guys address these problems? And every time I would witness somebody talk about lateral violence, they may not have called it that. I think up until this point, I've called it other things, or didn't even really know what words to use to call it lateral oppression. But now I use it because it is a good umbrella term for all these other examples that everyone's bringing up. But anyways, at these events, community members would always talk about lateral oppression and how it's always an issue. And so sometimes the solutions that we would come to as a group is, okay, we need some more community-based activities together to help bring us back together and address some of these problems. And so through that, I learned about, through the Native Wellness Institute, I learned about the gathering or the GONA training, Gathering of Native Americans, which is, it's all about creating a safe and supportive community again, especially for Native youth who are coming up, and helping them thrive and survive in this world, and kind of having lessons learned and showing them mistakes and accomplishes that we've had and helping them take us further. And so that GONA training really helped a lot of communities. I saw a granddaughter and a grandmother come back together as one. They were fighting, and because they were coming to these healing events, they came back together, and towards the end of the training, they were standing next to each other, they were holding hands. And that's my favorite example because I witnessed it from day one. I witnessed the awkwardness of them both, like two cats in an alleyway. Oh, we're at the same event? Okay, well, what are we gonna do? I guess I'm gonna be over here and you're gonna be over there. And throughout the training, they were closer, started talking more, and they talked to us about it. They said, hey, when this training started, we weren't that crazy about seeing each other, but the things you brought up about historical and generational trauma and just learning about our history and how colonization has impacted our behaviors, it helped us kind of forgive each other, come to a better understanding. So that's my favorite example of community-based events that can help address lateral oppression. I've also participated in a few blanket exercises that's performed by the National Indian Education Association. I witnessed them do it for a school system that had a large Native American student population, but the teachers were non-Native. I saw them, some light bulbs turning on in how they should approach their Native students. Most recently, a neighboring tribe also did the blanket exercise next to my tribe. So I went, and that was very healing too, because our tribes don't not get along, but there's a little bit of rift because we rub shoulders. And it was really good to see Shawnees and the other tribe, we were all in the same room together talking about common issues. And so I love talking circles. I think it's very informative and you get to express yourself in a safe environment, because outside of these activities, you go back to your silo. But when you're in these activities, somebody said what the blanket exercises. So the blanket exercise, the National Indian Education Association, they host these events that kind of talk about historical trauma. Say my tribe, the absentee Shawnees, they want to do a blanket exercise. What NIEA does is they go into your tribe's history, kind of sees, okay, what happened to this tribe? What are some key factors that have trickled down that may have impacted the community now? And you talk about it. And so it's tailored to every different tribe and talks about things that we're talking about today. And so those are my examples on how we can help transform lateral violence in Native communities come together as one. So thanks.
Thank you so much, Shoshona. Keely.
I completely agree with a lot of what Shoshona said, in that I feel like in a lot of spaces, like schools particularly, there needs to be the implementation of programs for support, especially like with schools when young children are experiencing this. They need tools to be able to navigate these experiences and understand what is going on when they experience it. So widespread community education, as Dorsey said, not only to children at school, but also to their parents, so that these I can't remember the term Benika used, acts of lateral kindness can be understood and reinforced in all spaces across the community. And having open conversation about it. So denormalizing it and really confronting the issues when they arise, and not allowing people to commit lateral violence and have it go unnoticed, I think, is one of the first ways of addressing it and ensuring that people understand the way things are, and leading to a culture shift within our communities where oftentimes these things happen. So yeah, I feel like our panelists have already said so many amazing things. So I completely agree with a lot that's been mentioned already.
Amish Davey, are you ready? I think you're the last one to answer this question, and I think we're running a little bit behind, so we're trying to get this through, but you go.
Okay. Yeah, sorry, I live in a dorm, so it's a bit busy here, so.
No problem.
So I think guys like this. So the ways I think we can help transfer our communities away from lateral violence into a more more calm environment, I would say. It's time we all start having a conversation about topics that keep us oppressed, like why some of us are scared to be ourselves, what's bothering us, how's your day? Normalizing talking through emotions, our days, how certain topics of the world are affecting us and our people. I think just opening up the conversation in our community, like talking about our visions, our dreams, we need to empower our community again. We are originally spiritually grounded people. Why do we pressure like these colonized mindsets onto our people, you know? No, I'm not saying everyone in the Zoom call is doing this, but as someone that struggles and comes from an Indigenous background, I have felt the pressure of these colonized mindsets, the colonized mental health perspectives, the colonized, just like the colonized world we live in, you know. I think it just comes with all of us wanting to decolonize our way of living, decolonize our mindsets that have been pressured onto us. I think that like just learning from all my friends and their experiences in the mental health industry, like being rushed through processes, not even actually being listened to, just being prescribed medication, thrown into mental facilities, you know, like a lot of my brothers and sisters have been pushed down to be forgotten about in these facilities. Although like we have so much help, like I'm so grateful to all the Indigenous mental health professionals that want to hear us, want to provide us a platform to speak here right now. I think that just decolonizing our systems and our own mindsets can go a long way. I think it's time we start looking at the spiritual aspects and the way the way we approach certain things and the way we think, bringing back our people to our mindset, that they are capable of overcoming certain bumps in their life, teaching our people how to express themselves in ways that are appropriate and help them heal in their own ways. We need to validate each other's traumas because everyone is experiencing things differently and affects them in different ways. No one, growing up, there was a lot of comparison between certain traumas and invalidated my certain trauma, whether it be at home, in school, and workplaces. Oh, you didn't have it that bad. You know, like a lot of people just don't understand certain things they say. And it just comes with educating each other and like letting them know, hey, you had different trauma than I did. My trauma is just as valid as yours. And just shifting towards our traditional ways of thinking, our Indigenous mindset, dismantling the colonized mindset. Talking will help us in certain ways of our lives. And we are people that tell stories, and when we receive stories, we take those and apply it to our lives. It helps us grow. All the mentors in my life, all the things I know now are because of stories that have been told, lessons that just conversations with random people. You know, we already lost so many people to colonization, boarding school, suicide, drug addiction, alcoholism, MMIW, gang violence. Lateral violence can take lives, hurt people's careers, make us more divided than we already are. It's preventing us from coming together and wanting change for all of our communities, not just my community, your community, their community, our community. I just like going back to like empowering each other, you know, like it's not silly to dream and want big and go out and change the world, you know, whether that be in your own small town or traveling to other Indigenous communities and helping them heal. I just think it's time that we like start embodying our warrior mindset back to like our roots, what our ancestors have provided us, you know. Like it makes me sad as a youth that like we've steered so far from our traditional ways, you know. And it doesn't even have to be traditional, it could be modernized Indigenous, and like Indigenous modern, like whatever, you know. We're growing as a people, and as we grow And as we continue to grow, it's up to us to grow with it and not fall behind it. Because we are resilient people. We're forcibly, we have to be resilient, you know, and we have to want change. We have to want all of this. So I guess conversation and through stories and finally just connecting with each other through that will help transform our community. That's all I have.
You guys are wonderful. I keep saying that, but every time I see our youth speaking, I get inspired. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I just wanted to add just a few more things. I think you covered most of it, but most importantly, I want to say, you know, the change starts with you, and I think you guys already covered it. But we need to continue, if we're not hiring each other in our own tribal communities, make sure that we are hiring each other. Make sure that we're checking on our neighbors, especially our elderlies. If you see someone that is isolated, doesn't seem like they're going out and about and doing things in their areas, make sure to check on that person to see what is going on and include them. Get to know more people, even strangers in your own community that you don't know, because you don't know what is going on with that person in that person's life. And I do want to say that we are going to be offering this in Native American communities, because I do think it's very important that we provide these kind of trainings to our Native communities so that they can grow and prosper together as one. Thank you so much. We're going to have an activity right now, but you guys are just so wonderful. We're going to have an activity, do a few things, and then if people want to stay after the 4 o'clock for questions and answers, you're more than welcome. But again, if they don't, I just want to say, panelists, you are my hope. Liz?
So I just wanted to thank all of the panelists for educating me and allowing me to listen to your stories. This last question has brought up a quote that we talk about a lot in community behavioral health, which is "The master's tools will never dismantle the master's house" by Audre Lorde. And by discussing lateral kindness and addressing lateral violence and the blanket exercise, you're talking about ways to use you as a person in your community to transform lateral violence and come together, and it's been so powerful to hear. So what we're going to do now is people can either use their phone and scan, or they can use the link in the chat that Taylor just put in, and we're going to use the question, how can we help to transform lateral violence in Native communities and come together as one? You'll get a little word box where you can enter in commentary, and as you add more comments, the word cloud will change, and we'll share that once everybody scans the QR code or goes to the chat link.
So we're asking for your ideas then, is that right?
Correct. All right, so we are now switching to the image where you can see things are gradually getting bigger and changing and shifting. So we're seeing education and communication and lateral kindness and healing becoming larger, as well as in schools and community and respecting others. They're just growing bigger and bigger. And as people continue to respond, it's going to continue to shift. I think it's wonderful that people are saying empowerment and courage, as well as understanding and self-love. And from there, I'm going to switch to Teresa to close us.
Thank you, Liz. And I did see education too. What happens is the more people that vote on one thing, the bigger it gets. So thank you. Yes, so just to continue this on, we want you to leave something and do something as you go today. Number one, if you're hurting, it's okay, it's understandable. We are all on our separate and different journeys in different places in our journey, but it is not okay to hurt somebody else just because you're hurting. Number two, I would love for you to take either today or tomorrow to just say something nice to someone. Maybe someone that you hardly even know or you see in the passing or at the grocery store. If you're going to go to the grocery store today, just say something nice to them. And then, you know, a lot of times, like we said, hurt people hurt people. So if you're hurting, whatever is leaving you behind or making you hurt, in order to maybe help you mentally, why don't you do something that makes you happy? For example, if you want to go to school, if you want a job, go for it. Stop putting that off. So we're asking you today to reach in your heart, reach in your soul, find out what it is that's going to make you happy for yourself, and start achieving those goals and work towards those goals. And then please spread this. If we continue to spread this, spread the crab mentality, spread what you heard here today, we can make change together as one. And that is what the goal is for what we're doing today. We are done. It is 3:56. We have a few minutes for Q&A. If anybody does have any questions for our wonderful, wonderful panelists today, again, every time I do this, this is my favorite part of my job by far. So panelists, I'm just so proud of each one of you. So does anybody have any questions before we log off today for our panelists?
We have a question in the chat that says, what helped you become the leader you are today?
All right, panelists, who would like to take that? Go ahead.
Something that really wait, what was it again? I'm so sorry.
What makes you the leader you are today? Because you are a leader.
So I honestly will say, like, all of my hardship, one, but also having pride in my community. Just like, I guess everything over the course of my 18 years of my life has shaped me into the leader I am today and wanting better for my people. Like, because I feel like all Indigenous people are naturally empathetic. You know, we feel for each other, we understand each other. And so when I see my people struggling, yes, I want to help them, but I hope they are also helping themselves. And being a leader comes with boundaries. Being a leader comes with wanting to take charge and lead the charge for all of us. I believe everyone is a leader. So I guess what helped me become a leader was like having other people also believe in me and empowering my voice, and just overall wanting better for myself and my family.
Anybody else want to answer that?
I'll give it a shot. So what was the question again?
You guys are leaders. So what made you the leader you are today?
Oh, okay.
Well, I thought you volunteered before you got the question. But that's leadership skills, Shoshona.
Well, okay. It wasn't until recently, I think I was confident enough to call myself a leader, because up until this point, I'm just like, I don't think I'm a leader. No one's looking at me. But no, I definitely have some little eyes looking up at me. And it wasn't until I started taking care of myself and building myself up, working on my confidence and my self-esteem, where I was able to put my issues aside to help others. And so I think that's really, I feel the most confident I have in a long time right now. And I definitely am proud to be a leader and to have people looking up to me right now, because it took a lot of work for me to get to this point. And I want to help other people get to this point as well, because if I could do it, anyone else can do it too.
Thank you, guys. I did want to acknowledge a few people that we had in the audience really quick before they log off. Tracy Bethel is here today. She's from our networking coordinating office, so I'm going to call her out. I just see that she's here, so I just wanted to say hello, and I do hope that you enjoyed hearing from our Native youth today. If you want to say anything, you're on mute. If you don't, that's okay too.
Sure. Sure. Hi, Teresa. Thanks so much. I'm first off very grateful to have the invitation, and I did put a note in the chat. I'm just so thankful to have been here. And yeah, I am a part of the National Child Traumatic Stress Network. And if this is the way y'all are going to start this 5-year grant, I am just really excited about what changes and what things are going to come as a result of this work. So thanks so much for today. And I'm just so excited about all the work to come, Teresa.
Thank you for being here today, Tracy. Thank you so much. And then I also wanted to give a shout out to NIEA. I thought I saw her on here. She may have left already. Melanie Johnson, are you here today? Yes.
Yes, I'm here today.
Yes. Hi, Melanie. She was with us yesterday, and I just wanted to give her a shout out because she does have another great organization that we do a lot of work with. So hello, Melanie. Do you want to say a few words? Besides, your daughter did a wonderful job.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello. Okay. Yeah, so I wanted to just say what a great job everyone did today. And if you want to learn more about, you know, the blanket exercise, which we call the Indigenous Resiliency training, I would love to talk to people about that. It is very healing, and you all are doing such a great job. And I was so inspired by listening to all the panelists, and it does give me hope for the future. So thank you all.
Agreed. We are 4:02. Does anybody have any lasting words for us today so that we can leave on a good way? I feel good. I hope everybody feels good leaving us today. Does anybody have anything? If you do, you might want to speak up now.
Just want to say, Toyak, Wopila, Akehat, you know, no matter where I go, all the languages I learn, I always try and at least learn the thank you words. So no matter where I go, if I'm just telling an elder or whatever it is, I always say thank you. Blessings to you guys all. You know, honestly, it's a good thing to be here and learn about all you guys' different experiences and how we can move forward from it. So I just want to say, Kehat, Toyak, you know, Wopila, all those good words.
Aho, Miigwech.
I also just wanted to say thank you for providing a space for us to speak and give our own perspective and speak our truth. And I wish everyone that is in the Zoom call the best at whatever they're doing in their own ways and in your own path on how you're going to heal your own community. I hope it goes well, and I wish you guys all the best. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Anybody else? Any last panelists want to say goodbye to our audience or any last words before we call it a day? Okay. Don't forget, we have the GIPR evaluation in the link. Please take a few minutes to fill it out. It tells us how we're doing. And let us know what other kinds of workshops and things you would like to hear us doing going forward. This is a new grant that we are very excited of. And again, last I'm going to leave you with, don't be a crab. Thank you for being here today. Oh, I'm sorry, Monica, you just raised your hand.
Yes, I just want to read one post here. It's so many I could read to you guys, but one of them is, thank you, beautiful people, for participating in the panel today. I'm honored to learn from you, and so am I.
Somebody think that. Yes. Okay, let's go have a great evening, guys. Thank you again so much. You've won my heart again. So thank you.